Okay, so we covered ems. In this video, we're going to talk about rems, but in order for that to make sense, I want to showcase one of the shortcomings or one of the common issues with ems. So I've undone some of the super large fonts that we had at the end of the previous video, and I'm going to add some markup in, maybe just to the article here. In this article, I'll add, how about a bulleted list? And in our list, we'll have, what should we have in here? Maybe types of foods? Sure. Pasta, and then we'll have another type of food. How about salad, and one more, pasta, salad, and gelato. Sure. Okay, and then instead of pasta, we're actually going to add a nested list. So we'll have a UL with different types of pasta. So ravioli, and how about, if I could spell pappardelle, I don't know how to spell that. Kind of butcher it. How about penne? Okay, and then almost there, inside of ravioli, we're going to have two types. So a UL with an LI. We'll have spinach, ricotta, and maybe we'll just leave it at that for now. Okay, so there is my nested list. The contents really don't matter. I probably just wasted about 40 seconds of your life on that. I'm sorry. What I want to show is that if I style my UL, and I want to change the font size. Let's say I want it to be smaller or larger, maybe a bit larger, and it's inside of this article, right? And the article has a font size of 15px. So I could say UL has a font size of, how about 1.5 ems? So just half larger, 50% larger than whatever the article's font size is. I'll refresh. Whoa, what's going on here? Well, we have nested ULs. This is sort of a forced example, but it does illustrate one of the problems with ems is that they can stack, they can grow or shrink very quickly, right? If I had done this the other way and said I want 0.7 EMs, our text gets quite small as we nest further and further, because ems, for font size at least, are based upon the parent's font size. So if this is 1.5 times the font size of that thing, well, we have another UL here, and that is going to get its font size from the parent and multiply by 1.5. Then we have another UL, another 1.5 times greater, and it keeps going. So this is one of the issues with ems, and it leads us to rems. So rems or root ems are similar, except rather than deriving the font size from the parent element, they derive the font size from the root HTML element's font size. So it's relative to this one font size for the entire document. So if your root HTML element has a font size of 20 pixels, one rem is always 20 pixels no matter where you are in the document, no matter what you're nested inside of. So I'll show you how this could work. So I've updated my markup just a little bit to make it easier to avoid conflicts. I've given this article an ID of ems. That's for everything we just did. So now I can have another article or a section or something with the ID of rems. So my styles are now very specific. They're based off of that ID, just so that they're not competing. Okay, so I'm going to duplicate this entire article. Come down here, change the ID to be rems, just like that. Okay, and then I just updated this heading to say using rems instead of ems. And I'll go in here, I'll select rems. And remember, this is all based upon the root element's font size. And the root element, in case I haven't made that clear, is this thing. So it has a default font size, but you can also change it. But let me just show you how this works. So if I want this to be, this H2 to be larger than this, and I want this to be larger than this, and I want these to be smaller than this, or larger than this, or whatever it is, I want to have some sort of ratio that I can maintain. And I don't want it to scale based upon parents. I don't want this weird jankiness to happen. I want it to be constant. That's where rems come in. So I could select the H3 in there, inside of that ID of rems, and give it a font size of, how about 3 rems? And that will be 3 times whatever the root element's font size is. And there we go. Now, I meant to do that to the H2. And then I could do the same thing for the H3, and maybe make it 2 times the root element's font size. Okay? And then I can do things like the UL in there, and this is the big one. I can give it a font size of 1 rem, or of, I don't know, how about 0.8 rems? And it's kind of small, honestly, but we don't get any of that snowballing effect where it's all based upon a parent and we're multiplying by 0.8 and then by 0.8 and so on. Instead, it's always based upon the root element's font size. So now we have this scale that we can use across the entire document. I want this thing to be 3 times the root. This is 2 times. This should be 1 time. I want this button to be 1.5 times, right? I can do all of that stuff. I could say rems button font size is 1.5 rems, if that's how I wanted to handle this. Often you'll see people mix ems and rems together because there are times you want something to be situationally dependent. Like this button, maybe the font size is based upon rems, but the padding, the border radius, should change depending on what this actual font size is computed to be. But if we set the border radius to be based upon the root elements, that does not account for the actual size of the element. Now, this is getting in the weeds a bit. I think this can be a little intimidating if you're starting out, but just remember this concept of rems. If you change the root element's font size, which I can do, let's just do it up top. HTML, font size, let's make it really small, 10 pixels. Everything that I used rems for shrank down. The other things didn't really change much. If I go very large here, 30 pixels, it's not huge, but everything based upon rems is now starting with a single rem being 30 pixels. So if I have 5 rems, or how about 2 rems, that's going to be 60 pixels. 3 rems is 90. It's not going to change unless that root font size changes. Ems change based upon the parent element's font size, as we see clearly demonstrated here. Every single UL here has a font size of, 1.5 ems? Here, everything has a font size of 0.8 ems, or I could do 1.5 rems rather, and they're all the same size. So that's the main difference. It's a significant difference, and rems are often easier to work with. They're easier to predict, but ems do have a place, as I showed with this button, for example, when you want to make like a little component, a little thing that's reusable and might scale up or down nicely based upon that font size. Rems is really how something looks relative to the rest of the document. Okay, that's enough units for now. It's a bit of a dry conversation. Thanks for hanging in there if you're still there. We got to move on to some more exciting stuff soon.